Hey everybody, welcome back to On Stage, Off Stage. I'm your host, George Sapio. This is episode number 159, November 2021. This is our third and final 2021 play reading with the theme of pets. The play is Jokers in the Pack. The playwright is Tony Vale. We will have a chat with Tony immediately following the play reading. Cast of characters begins with Hayden. He is an ex-search and rescue dog, a pointer. He'll be played by Kerry Frater. Next up is Iris, an ex-guide dog. She is a Labrador and played by Georgette Vale. Rounding out the cast is Jock, a border collie, an ex-sheepdog played by Alistair Cheatham. The setting is a free-run field for dogs.
Hello.
Oh, please don't sniff me.
Oh, I wasn't going to.
Nothing personal. I just don't like other dogs invading my space.
Oh, no problem. Are you okay?
Why shouldn't I be?
Well, it's just that when dogs get in here, they like to run around and
I've been stood here for however long. Yes, I know. Is that a problem?
Oh, none whatsoever. Is this your first time here?
What makes you say that?
Well, it's just that it's a strangely liberating... I'll say that again. It's just that it's a strangely liberating experience, and not every dog can handle it.
Why all the questions? Are you a police dog?
Do I look like one?
Well, they're usually German shepherds, and you're a...
A pointer.
Yes, I thought that's what you were.
Well, to answer your question, I'm not a police dog, but I've worked with a lot. Can't mistake a golden retriever.
Well done, you.
Oh, would you rather be left on your own?
Oh, I'm not sure what I want.
Would it help to talk about it?
Have you got 2 hours?
Oh, I'm not in any hurry. My owner is having a coffee in the cafe. Oh, is that what's troubling you? A change of owner? Sorry, that's probably a question too many. I didn't mean...
It was a valid question. It's not only a new owner I'm having to deal with. It's a whole new way of life.
Oh, are you a working dog? An assistance dog, perhaps?
What makes you say that?
Oh, I can imagine that you'd be a hit with most humans.
I used to be a guide dog. Touch me.
Oh, I won't. Look, I'm rooted to this spot.
You look like a statue.
Well, it comes in handy sometime. I am a pointer, after all.
You look ridiculous.
Can I move? Oh, as long as I don't touch you.
Of course you can move.
Are you sure?
Oh, you're making me feel like a bitch.
Oh, a very attractive one, if you don't mind me saying.
Now you're making me blush. What's your name?
Hayden.
Oh, that's an unusual name for a dog.
Well, I'm not proud of it. And yours?
Iris.
Oh, a flower. Oh, I should have known, and very appropriate for a guide dog.
It's not something to joke about.
Oh, it wasn't meant to be a joke. I happen to think Iris is a lovely name.
Iris was the goddess of the rainbow. And I used to tell all my guide dog friends that Iris is the I in rainbow.
What did I say to offend you? I don't want to fall into the trap of doing it again.
I used to be a guide dog, but I had to give it up because I started to lose my eyesight. There, go on now, you can have a good laugh because everyone else does.
Oh, I don't think it's funny. How long had you been doing it?
Almost 8 years. Not bad innings for a working guide dog.
Do you miss it?
I didn't realise how much until I came here.
Well, being alone, you mean?
Not being needed. I know not being needed. I know every dog owner will say how much they need their canine companion, but for mine, I was the key to her independence, her ability to do her job. Can you understand that?
More than you can know.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, I was useful once.
Are you working?
Not now.
Oh no, what have I said?
No, it's okay. I've come to terms with it now. Time is a healer. But I'll never really get over it.
We don't have to talk about it if you'd rather not.
That's your assistant's dog instinct kicking in, is it?
Well, I suppose it must be.
Oh, well, you've definitely still got it. It's the self-doubt that's the hardest to cope with.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a nosy bitch. What job did you used to do?
Oh, search and rescue.
Great job for a pointer.
Well, I've heard it before. It wasn't funny the first time.
Oh, sorry. What happened?
I went on a mission one day, and I didn't come back for over a week.
On purpose?
You're the first to ask that question.
A logical one, I would have thought.
You didn't ask me whether I got lost, as in I couldn't remember how to get back to base.
So you decided to lose yourself? Or perhaps get lost within yourself?
Both, probably.
Well, it's a very stressful job. Lives can depend upon it.
Just like yours.
Well, it can be. Although my day was always planned for me.
I've always admired guide dogs.
Oh, yeah? Well, you're not one of the moaning brigade who think we lead a charmed life, being able to go into cafes and shops.
Well, you're there for a purpose, aren't you?
Well, no one seems to understand that. And you have to put up with all that prodding and poking from the public when you're out. If I'm in harness, I'm working, so don't make a fuss of me, because it annoys the shit out of my owner.
But all that information you have to retain, where the bus stops are, and the railway station, stuff like that.
All I have to do is to look for surprises on the way, like holes in the pavement, and steer my owner around them. Mind you, not everyone realises that. My owner once asked someone for directions. Doesn't belong to my ear.
What, really?
Well, I kid you not.
Well, you might be interested in a group that I'm involved with. It's called Canine Support.
Oh, why?
Well, because it was set up to help dogs like you and me.
Who feel sorry for themselves?
No, quite the opposite, actually. It's to provide peer support for canines who are coming to terms with some kind of crisis or trauma in their lives.
Well, having the strength of others can be really helpful. Before I became visually impaired, I used to say that my fellow guide dogs and I were in the Rainbow Club.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
Well, you wouldn't have. Doesn't exist. Iris is the I in rainbow, remember? Guide dogs with names beginning with other letters in rainbow just automatically become members of the Rainbow Club.
7 names, 7 members. Oh, that's about the same with our group. Well, give or take. There's one of our members over there.
Where?
The Border Collie. He's called Jock. Oh, he's coming over.
Oh. Hi, Aiden, my old mate. Who's this little beauty? You sly dog.
Oh, hi, Jock. Oh, say hello to Iris. Oh, and no sniffing or touching.
Is she likely to?
I meant you, Jock. I know what you're like when it comes to engaging with the opposite sex.
Look at you. I've only been here a few seconds and you mentioned touching, sniffing and sex in that time.
Oh, I'm sorry, Iris. He's always like this.
It's all right. Hello, Jock. Pleased to meet you. It's just that I've got this thing about personal space. It's no offence meant.
None taken. If I was good at taking offence, my owner wouldn't trust me off the lead in here.
Hayden was telling me that you're a member of Canine Support.
Was he now? That's confidential information.
I was only trying to...
I know it was your idea to set it up, and you've always been on the lookout for waifs and strays.
Oh, is that why you came over to talk to me?
Well, sort of. But it wasn't just about recruiting you as a Canine Support member.
Oh, and I thought you were genuinely interested in me.
I was. I am. Oh, Jock, see what you've done.
What I've done? I just came over here to say hi to my best mate, and you throw this shit at me.
Who are you calling shit?
I wasn't calling you shit. It's the baggage that goes with the Canine Support group I was talking about. I'm a member of it, yes, but it doesn't mean that I want to broadcast it around this bloody field.
I can understand that.
Oh, Jock, mate.
Hayden, why don't you bugger off on your 100 run and leave me to have a chat with Iris? I'm bound to get more sense out of her than you.
Well, I didn't mean to...
Go on, sod off.
Will you do the counting for me?
Well, can't you do your own counting for once?
Yes, but you do it so much better than me.
All right, then. Off you go. 1, 2...
Oh, that's great. Thanks, mate.
3, 4, 5, 6. That'll do.
Well, aren't you going to keep counting?
He wants me to count to 100.
So?
I never learnt to count beyond 10. Well, he just needs to know that he can get from here to the other side of the field in the time it takes to count to 100. Who am I to deny him that?
You mean cheat?
I wouldn't put it quite like that. It keeps him happy.
Can I ask you a question about Canine Support Group?
If you must.
What caused you to join?
Well, it's in my acceptance statement, so I might as well tell you.
What's an acceptance statement?
It's how we start every meeting. Name, breed, and why we joined. I'm Jock, I'm a border collie, and I used to be a sheepdog.
Were you really a sheepdog?
OK, let's have the one-liner. I've heard most of them.
No, I wasn't going to make a joke of it. I really wasn't.
You weren't? Most do.
What? Why did you give it up?
I had no choice.
Because you can't count.
Look, if you must know, I'm allergic to sheep, or more especially to wool.
How did you find out?
I was always a bit breathless when herding the dopey sods, but I put that down to being unfit. It's hard work moving them around, you know.
Oh, I can imagine.
Most dogs are tempted to worry sheep. In my case, it were them that worried me.
And that's why you joined Canine Support?
Well, helped me come to terms with the feeling of failure. That's where I met Hayden. I think we've been mates ever since.
He's a nice chap. What caused him to go missing?
He told you about that?
Why wouldn't he?
You're privileged. He never talks about it outside of meetings.
Well, he said he wasn't proud of his name. What did he mean by that?
His owner's family name is Seek. When he started the search and rescue training, they nicknamed him Hide and Seek. That's why they called him Hayden. When he went missing, it was assumed it's because he'd lost his sense of direction. He was never trusted after that.
And the name reminds him of the job that he can never do again.
I guess so.
And my name's Iris. And I used to be a guide dog until I started to lose my eyesight. It's just so hard to come to terms with it.
Is that why you want to be a member of Canine Support?
Well, I didn't say I did.
Hey up. Hayden's on his way back. 97, 98, 99.
Just made it.
100. Well done, mate.
Yes, well done, you.
Oh, thanks. Oh, I hope Jock has been behaving himself.
He's been the perfect canine companion.
Will we be seeing you again?
Well, I'll certainly be coming back. It's nice here.
I said she's welcome to become a member of Canine Support anytime she likes.
Well, I never said that...
Oh, that's great. Well, we'll introduce you to a few more members the next time you're up here, before you make a decision.
Oh, I'd like that.
Come on, Jock. How about a session on the agility gear?
Must we?
Oh, come on. You love it. You know you do.
Yeah, right.
Hope to see you again soon, Iris.
Thank you. I'll look forward to it.
And that was Jokers in the Pack by playwright Tony Vale. Cast of characters was Hayden, played by Kerry Frater. Iris was played by Georgette Vale, and Jock was played by Alistair Cheatham. Tony was kind enough to give us a few moments of his time to talk about his work and his ultimate play about humans' best friends. How did this come about, and why these three particular dogs? Because I like all of them.
Well, the answer to how did it come about was actually, there was a news story not so long ago locally where a rescue dog needed to be rescued. In fact, it disappeared for about a week, and the search and rescue team under which it was working actually then had to put resources into trying to find the dog. So that's kind of started me thinking, I wonder why the dog went missing, kind of what happened when he was out there, because he turned up and he seemed okay, so he'd obviously managed to look after himself, and it looked as if it was almost intentional. And then that caused me to think that actually this is a good example of somebody in a certain profession not coming up to scratch or failing in some way. And I thought, well, what other dog might fail? And then I added another two characters who had got a history of not being able to perform their professional duties, if you know what I mean.
Sure. When you say intentional, intentional on the dog's part to take a walk, or?
Well, another thing really was that the venue is actually quite close to me, in the sense that 2 or 3 years ago, a farmer on the edge of town decided to set up a mini industrial estate for dogs. With all sorts of businesses that like dog grooming and dog training. And they had a nice cafe, which were dog friendly and so forth. And one of the things they had was an open field, which was fenced off to allow dogs to go out without a lead. Right. And I'd always said our family, my wife's family, has always owned dogs, and you know, the dog was always at the end of the lead, and I thought how restricting that must be for the dog not to be able to have conversations with other dogs when the owners are listening in, you know. So the idea of these dogs being able to free run meant that they could engage with any canine they wanted to and have all sorts of conversations. And so that aspect of it, coupled with the kind of characters and where they're coming from, perhaps feeling a lack of self-esteem and so on. So they had certain opportunities for mutual support. And I gave them that. I gave them an organization that would be mutually supportive. And that was kind of background to the play.
Yeah, because I kept wondering about Iris. And
yes, well, I am involved with a talking newspaper organisation that we put local news and information on audio, and we send it out to visually impaired people. And I've been doing that, with just coming round to almost to the day, 24 years our service has been launched.
Wow.
So, and my wife works professionally with people with visual and sensory impairments.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of the guide dog not as something to pat and to, make a fuss of, but actually from a professional standpoint as to their significance to the dog, the guide dog owner, who for them it's a means of mobility. So I was aware of the relationship between a guide dog and the guide dog owner, and more especially the guide dog having a responsibility towards their owner. So that puts the pressure on even more to this guide dog. And the irony was, the reason why Iris couldn't work was because she was getting, she had failing eyesight. So it was the biggest irony of all, really.
Yeah, that did not, no pun intended, did not see that coming. But once I did see it and I read it, it made absolute perfect sense. And the relationship between the three dogs was there all the way from the first couple of lines. But all of a sudden that just kind of tied the knot on it, so to speak. It was all of a sudden these three dogs are now a subset of their own, and it brought them closer. I thought it was a really, really nice point.
Yeah, I also wanted to highlight the relationship between Jock, the border collie, and Hayden, the dog that was a search and rescue dog, because they obviously knew each other before that, and they had a particular relationship which was mutually supportive.
Sure, yeah. It's nice because those three dogs represent the best in what we should be. It was, yeah. I got to admit, it's when I first started reading this, and the first couple of lines were hello, and Iris comes back with, please don't sniff me. And I thought, how else am I going to say hello? How else am I going to know who you are? Because that's how dogs, I guess, figure out who it is they're dealing with. They grab the scent. It's not like checking an ID. It's more like hanging out with another human being for a period of time until you get the gist of who they are. But I've never met a dog that doesn't sniff, just to find out what things are. And when Iris said, please don't sniff me, that immediately focused all of my attention on her. And not to put this in a derogatory way, but it was like, what is her problem? And it's obviously one of, at first I thought, dignity and privacy. So, yeah, she kind of had me from the get-go on this. And for me, the play was watching the other two dogs discover who she was and see what their reactions to her would have been. So, yeah, please don't, I think I'm going to use that line when I meet new people for the first time. Please don't sniff me.
As a writer yourself, you'll know that sometimes when you write something, you realize afterwards that it has more significance than you thought when you wrote it. And I post occasionally on a Facebook page, which is involving visually impaired people. And I put the note out there saying, do you happen to have a guide dog called Iris? And actually, I know of one locally. Mm-hmm. And somebody came back and said that they did. But they also said, unfortunately, she's gone over the Rainbow Bridge. And I hadn't really picked up on that phrase in the sense of the dog going, into canine heaven, as it were. And the point about Iris being the I in the word rainbow was something that occurred to me initially, but it didn't actually resonate in the way that it came across. Obviously, from somebody who was missing their equivalent of iris.
Sure. Yeah. It's. I was just going to say it's a very human story, but it's a very natural story. It's a very generous and kind story, and I think that's one of the things that I liked about it so much. Well done, Tony. You just mentioned a couple of times about working for the visually impaired and the talking newspaper, and you also mentioned that your wife Georgette donates her time as well to good causes, helping out other people, which I really wish more people in this world would do. At least take a few more minutes every week and just look at somebody else and do something to help them out. We'd be so much farther along than we are. Let's talk about this for a little bit, because I find it a really lovely thing to do. How long have you been working with this talking newspaper, and tell me about some of the other activities that you're involved with as far as community service?
Well, the talking newspaper was a kind of a hobby, really. I fell into the world of that in the mid-'80s, actually. I was living elsewhere, and the local Rotary group wanted to set up a talking newspaper service. There was one in two bigger towns either side of us. I went along and explained that I had been involved in hospital radio, and also I edited a print village newsletter, and they said, "Oh, that sounds good. The combination of sound and words, we'll make you the editor." And so in 1983, I started with a blank cassette. We were talking about cassettes in those days.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
And we came up with a service until my wife and I left that town. It was about 7 or 8 years. And the service was running. We then moved to another one where there was another organization which I got involved in a slightly different way. And then we moved again and came here in Norfolk, UK. And there was a gap in the market, as it were, that there were 8 zones where there could be talking newspapers and only 7 talking newspapers. So it was almost destined that we were going to set one up. So we got here in the March, we had a meeting in the September, and by the following April, we'd got enough money to go and launch. And that was on the 10th of April, 1998, the day that the Good Friday Agreement was signed. So that was a historical moment in Northern Ireland. And it was Easter. It was Good Friday, it was Easter. So, and here we're recording this conversation as we head towards Good Friday, just a few days away, oddly.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the talking newspaper background. My professional involvement, I started life as an insurance person and did that for 18 years, and then joined a charity called Age Concern, who were very much about older people and promoting the positive side of aging, and they got into this service provision. So I kind of jumped ship from the commercial world as I saw it to the community world of that particular field, and that got me introduced to the world of care homes, and particularly older people in care homes. Yeah. And that's been the inspiration of some of my other playwriting work as well. And I'm very pleased to say that you and I were able to work on a particular piece which has actually had a wider audience. The local BBC radio station picked it up under their upload program, and it was actually broadcast. One of my ambitions as a playwright has been to get one of my plays on BBC radio, and albeit the national one.
Star, Tony.
But I've managed to sneak in on the local card, as it were. But those elements of involvement professionally around, if you like, community-connected roles, then spilled into home. One of the involvements I had was working for a national company that has a number of care homes for older people. They were looking for somebody to come up with some ideas for activities that they could share with the activity person in each of their homes. So I put together a program of different kinds of activities involving elements of the outside world, young people, people involved in different organizations and so on. And one of the ideas I came up with was a theme day called Lemon Day. Lemon is a color, is a flavor, is a fruit. So it's got a currency which can transcend different elements. If you have lemon as a flavor, it's a food. If you have lemon as a fruit, it's a healthy food item, and it's a 5-a-day fruit, and so on. And actually, as a color, you can wear any color that's yellow, and so in other words, in a care home setting, it meant that people who were directly looking after residents, people who were working in the garden, bringing in flowers that were yellow, people who were setting up the dining table with yellow napkins, and the chef or cook in the kitchen comes out with a lemon cake. So it was a way to bring the community of the care home together, and actually it seemed to be a good model to go out into the wider community. So Wyndham in Norfolk, UK, has a Lemon Day, and has had for the last 11 years.
That's amazing. I've been familiar with lemons all my life, and they never really had significance for me until a very, very dear friend of mine, a person who I love very much, came down with bladder cancer a number of years ago. And they were going for treatment at the doctor's office, and the treatment, the chemical that they were putting inside of them had been rationed and was no longer available. And well, it was down in stocks from plentiful to almost nil, because the company had decided that it wasn't viable, cost effective to make it. And this left this person in a very tenuous situation. But they found out through advice from holistic doctors and authorities that lemon juice, taken daily, all right, with water, by straight, whatever happens to be, actually does an amazing job of counteracting the cancer. And this person has been free of the disease for a number of years. So lemons are indeed lifesavers. So yes, you're using it as the symbol and the language of your event. Yeah, that's good choice.
Life-saving as well, in terms of deliberately chose the winter months for this Lemon Day. In fact, the weekend after the clocks go back, so that it gets dark, we lose the daylight. And actually putting on a lemon or yellow fluorescent jacket, if you're out, on your bicycle or taking a dog for a walk, it is actually a lifesaver. Sure. Because people who don't have that are at much more risk of being of injury. So it kind of depends how you look at it. The local football team, local as in Norwich City, they're just about to go down a league, we think, but they play in yellow and green. So 26,000 of their fans meet up every other Saturday, and that becomes their Lemon Day. Yeah. Because that everybody, what connects them is that shirt, and they come from all, areas of life and community, but together it brings them together. So I think it's an interesting metaphor in terms of you know, how we connect with each other and how we connect with the community. There has to be some common thread, really.
Yeah, and it's amazing that the symbols that we pick subconsciously or consciously to use as our connectors to other people. Speaking of subconscious, I want to go back to something you touched on earlier in the interview, and it was about a line that you wrote that you realized later had more significance than you originally thought when you scribbled it down. And I think a lot of us as writers, we do the same thing. We try and write with the main thread in our heads, putting it down on paper, making it all go from A to Z, logically, clearly, and we try to be as objective as possible. But many of us look at what we've written later and go, oh my gosh, did I write that? I didn't know I was writing that when I wrote that. And I think there's a lot more at work in the background than a lot of us are aware of when we're doing this. I know personally when I get into the zone, it's a very, very, very special place for me. And who knows what comes spilling out onto the page. Thank God the police and the psychiatrist can't see it. But have you found that to be typical or part of your writing, where you look back at something you've written and you go, there was a lot more meaning now than there was when I wrote it? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that comes out of conversation, actually. If we're fortunate enough to get our plays read, and then they start becoming a talking point, sometimes people will say to you, oh, that character, was he or she this, or was the intention that? And you know, as the writer, and certainly having written it a while ago, you're then slightly put on the spot, because we're supposed to know all these answers, aren't we?
But we don't.
But we don't. And this business of somebody's backstory, you know, and how much of that canvas we need as writers before we even start to write, because something in our head that we know, and we know the audience probably needs to know. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't necessarily want to make it so obvious. So there have certainly been occasions, and there was one particular line I remember, which was a joke. I wrote it as a joke, and in my head, but actually somebody had taken it to be a naughty joke. And it was only when it was pointed out that if you looked at it in a slightly different way, it could have come across as being naughtier than it was intended to be, if you know what I mean. So I kind of innocently strayed into an area that I would otherwise avoid.
The subconscious double entendre.
I think the real thing for me, though, as a playwright, one of my other ambitions is to actually write a line that that comes into parlance, you know, regular parlance. Sure. And my wife, who I met when she was involved in amateur dramatics and has been ever since. So I say I married into amateur theatre. She occasionally uses a line which I wrote on the basis of a character who was, they were talking about somebody else, and said, "Oh, he's a secret agent, I think." And the other person said, how do you know that? I said, well, it must be a secret. It was the word secret. I hadn't quite got the memory. Sure. Sorry. It's a bad story told, but or a good story told badly, I should say. But the point was that in certain conversations, Georgette will come out with this line, and I think, yeah, that was good to have that out there. I don't know whether in 400 years anything that we've written, George, will survive as Shakespeare's has, but we can only hope, can't we? Really?
You briefly mentioned talking about when audience members come up and ask you about your own work, and it's a question that you don't really know the answer to. And that happens, spoiler alert for everybody out there who's not a writer type, that happens more than you'd think. You get people coming up after the play asking, so what was Jane's motivation when it came to, climbing the mountain was highly symbolic of whatever. And I realize they're talking about something in the play, then they ask me either what the motivation was or the symbolism was. And I find myself with a complete blank slate because a lot of subconscious stuff comes out into the play that never really enters into my fully conscious mind. And that's the joy of writing. And I find myself looking at this person and they want an answer. And they think you have all the answers because you're the God of this world. You've created this world. You should know everything. And it's not always true. And my usual response is, I was wondering if somebody was going to pick up on that. Can you tell me more about how it made you feel and what was going on? Because now I'm learning about my own work, which I find really thrilling sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, sure. The one aspect really that sticks in my mind in this situation is actually a conversation with an actor after the performance, because we like to think that the actors take full responsibility for their characters and inhabit them and so on. And it's always going to be down to the individual as to whether or as to how much they do of that. But it was in fairly early days, and we gave this particular actor a lift home. So we had an opportunity to chat about the play, but more especially the character that she played. And she was asking me questions about the nature of the character, and that was that situation of having to try and answer it. But what I came away with was the amazing thing that as writers, we have a character in our head, we have a vision of what they look and sound like, and then we try to put that down on paper. We don't always describe it. It's through the action, through the conversation, through the interaction with the other characters. And you think, it's sort of in my head, it's on the page, and then the actors picked this up and then inhabited it and so on. And this particular conversation was, I was so pleased in a way that the character had obviously enough depth that the actor felt that they knew more about that character than I perhaps imagined for myself, So, but in terms of motivation and so on, I don't actually like being in the room when my plays are being rehearsed. A lot of plays that I've written have actually been in front of an audience because we self-produce them with other writers. But the idea of being so close to the action, and particularly, and I don't really want to get into a situation of directing my own work, because sometimes it's really down to you to come up with the decisions when questions are lobbed at you that you really don't have the answers to. So if the script's in the hands of a director, they presumably, if they're not too sure about things and feel they need to check it out, then there's always a conversation to be had. But equally, if they make a decision and they take a particular line, then you know, that's how it's got to be.
Yeah. Now I'm with you when it comes to being in rehearsal rooms. When somebody's rehearsing my work and it goes on for multiple rehearsals, I will check in on the first day, and I will check in towards the end, and I will keep an open dialogue with the director, who is my conduit to what is happening. And I base that on the assumption that I have chosen a director who likes the play, is capable of working with the play, and knows what he or she is doing. So I put all my trust there, and I work with the director on that. I answer questions, I cut lines, I add lines, whatever seems to be clanking during the rehearsal is addressed to me. For a reading, though, that's different. I'll sit in the corner while the whole table goes through it, and I'll make notes, and I'll keep my mouth completely shut. Only because I don't want to be the playwright in the room. Whether or not you keep quiet, whether or not you blend in with the background, everybody knows you're there. And I believe it's inhibiting to the actors to have daddy sitting in the back of the room wondering what you're doing with, his baby. And I find I learn a lot more when the director and the actors are allowed to play, experiment, and do their art. I don't hang on to every word going, you pronounced that wrong. It's a more freeing experience, I think, for everybody involved.
Yeah, it's only happened to me a couple of times, actually, where I've been able to turn up and come into the room as an audience member and then have the play unfold in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
And I much prefer that, actually. And I have written a play where the theme is that the writer goes to see their play being performed, and he has a particular reason for that. And so that kind of idea of the writer in the room, I thought was worth pursuing as a topic element or as a theme element within its own play, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And actually, I've played around. I don't know if you've done this, but some people will ask you, where do you get your ideas from, and how do you start?
Yeah.
And I thought, actually, I'll experiment with that. I'll start with a somewhere. It will be a bench somewhere, and the writer is sitting on the bench, and then something's going to happen, and I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, there's an elderly lady coming up. Oh, okay, yes. Writer gets in conversation with elderly lady and say, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm writing a play." Are you? Oh, you haven't got any, notepad or computer. Oh, yeah, I'm still writing it. Who's in it? Oh, you are. Am I? Yeah. And then through this sort of combination of information and you were. I noticed. Are you 83? I'm 84 next week, actually. Oh, are you? Oh, your birthday's in June, so you're called June. Yes, I am. And so it kind of develops in that way, and then the character kind of takes over and describes herself as the main character. And the writer says, well, I think actually the writer might be a bit more prominent in this one than they normally are. But so it was quite fun in its way, but it was almost a sort of technical exercise to say, how does one, construct a play, as it were, when the live elements, you start with some and then they start making their own decisions,
They do, and that's the fun part for me. I like watching my characters come up with lines I had no idea they were going to say, and then I have to look at them and go, now I have to deal with you. Well, Tony Vale, this has been a thrill talking to you, as it always is, sir. You're a pleasure. Thank you so much for a wonderful play, Jokers in the Pack.
Yeah, and well, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Hey kids, thanks for listening to On Stage, Off Stage. On Stage, Off Stage is produced monthly, and all of our shows can be found at onstageoffstage.org and also on iTunes and Spotify. If you enjoy what we do, please recommend us to your friends. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at OnOffStage. And if you are a theater artist with an upcoming project of interest or know of someone in the theater who'd make some seriously good chat, by all means, send us a note at info@onstageoffstage.org. I'm George Sapio. Thank you once again for listening. And please, stay safe, be careful, not only for yourself, but for those with whom we all share this rock. And as always, happy theatering to all of you.